Hello, welcome to Sim.bc, where right now is 0049, so it was 10:21 a.m. Yeah, and why is that the reason? Well, because of work. Yeah, as I said in yesterday's video, yesterday's horrible, disastrous video, if I do say so myself. Not only was the energy out there, sorry, when I'm saying out there, I mean outside of my body, because I had no energy to spare for the video, even though I really wanted to, because I was talking about a topic that I thought was wildly interesting. There's only one problem with me talking about a topic that I find widely interesting, and that is in video, I think it is 273, so just a couple of days ago, or a couple of weeks ago, I also talked about something that I thought was widely interesting. Yes, indeed, I did the exact same video, basically. Sure, it's raw footage, so there might be some new perspectives in there. It would be, inevitably, right? Even if I did the same video each and every day, if I had the same topic each and every day, it would still be a bit different, right? But it was so similar, the video. Sure, there wasn't small nuances there, a difference, but oh, the biggest problem ever, in my opinion, right? I was just watching that and I was like, feels familiar that I'm talking about this. But that's probably because I had it, as I said, as a subtext in my other videos. That's probably why I think it's kind of familiar. Yeah, turns out, no, I already made a video on it. Oh. And as I said, or as I've said before, I know I'm nothing to like billions and millions of views. But just for me, just for my own sake, it kind of still is irritating that it happened. Under my own nose, so to say. I tricked myself, which is not the best feeling in the world. Anyway, more than that, well, I was kind of tired. A very sensitive topic. Probably wasn't the best thing to go with. Anyway, mates, what I want to be talking about today, though, something completely different. And yeah, what I was going to say before I branched out into that video discussion thing, was that, well, I've worked today, so I'm equally as tired, and after just 2 or 3 or 4 days of working, however many there are now, they're starting to meld together, even though there are very few, less than a week, less than half a week maybe. I still know that in my future, there is no future of a prospect of me working with my body, so to say. That made me sound like a streetwalker. No, but what I'm trying to say is that I probably will not have a physical job in the future. I might have one, but I don't want one, right? The dream is now to have an office job, just to have one, because this is driving me nuts. I mean, I can do it now, sure, but I'm so tired. Just imagine when I'm like, what, 55? Anyway, I'm digressing. But what we're going to talk about today is something a bit of a personal issue. Yes, indeed. So, up with your peakers, so to say. Spice them listening devices that you have attached to your head, because now we're going to talk deep stuff. No, we're not really. Have you noticed how I sometimes say it's important to take a break? And no, this is not a pretext for a similar video. It's neither is it the pretext for me actually taking a break. What I meant is that I made some videos occasionally when I feel very pressured. I have lots of things to do. I don't feel like I can do them all properly or in a way that I want them to do, that I want to do them. And sometimes I can't do that anyway, but I still do them. So I'm saying like, you know what? I'm cutting this out. I'm taking a break, but at least I make a video about myself making a break. So it's not necessarily a break in and within itself. However, today I would like to take up the opposite. Yeah, the opposite part of that, which is sometimes you shouldn't take a break. For instance, right now I'm really tired. I can't probably not stress enough how tired I am. We're talking like my body has been working around the clock, it feels like, right? With different projects. It's been going out at work, it's been going out with here, I'm going to the gym. It's all of these different things. Sure, I could drop some of them, obviously, but I'm a guy who works with routine, right? I'm a routine person, so I like having these things in my life because they provide structure, and structure is nice. Structure is key to survival, living, and happiness. Just like fun, right? Fun is good to a certain extent. It should be a adequate amount of fun, an adequate amount of stress, an adequate amount of depression, and a structured way of going about these things. That's probably not just me, but a fringe minority, to say the least. However, these days I've been I've been very hyper-focused, let's say. There've been lots of things for me to do. And when I'm saying hyper-focused, that's a lie. I have not been hyper-focused. I've actually lost my focus at more times than I can imagine, right? At more times than I can count because of the tiredness. But sometimes I would look at the situation. I would look upon the situation and I would say, do you know what's good for you? It's good for you to take a break once in a while because you're probably pushing yourself really, really hard. Trying out all these new ventures, all these new projects. For me, it's probably like trying to do music at the same time. Kind of a new project for me, kind of a new venture for me in this thing, branching out, trying something new. And that can create the stress on you, right? Stress on your body, stress on your psychic, and all of these things, which isn't good. However, you can also be in times like this when it is good. For instance, my entire idea, or rather, if you step back and look at the larger picture of this entire project that I'm making here at YouTube, trying out YouTube, giving it the fair shot, an honest try. One of the things that's really important with that is that actually keeping up with the time, because something that I've usually said when I was thinking about doing a YouTube, I don't know, making YouTube videos before I started doing them, was, for instance, the time restraint. Though I do not have the time, and that kind of mentality is really dangerous for you, because that is what leads you to take the unnecessary breaks, which I would call today to be. Some people might be arguing against that, saying that it's completely rational, it's completely within the realms of possibilities to actually take a break in my situation right now. I would argue no, because still it is this idea, this mindset of I do not have the time. I do not have the time. Well, I'm working now. Sure, it's been working to some extent better and worse at different times, depending on what time, what day we're talking, what period of study we're talking when it came to me studying. But I still managed to make videos simultaneously as I was studying. And how weird wouldn't it be for me to say that, well, you can actually make two things at once. You can study at 100% and still make YouTube videos. Kind of what I want to prove, if not to other people, then to myself at the very least. To someone who has said before, right, just a couple of years back, that, I do not have the time. I really want to do it, but I don't have the time. Me starting with a full-time, or rather with a job right now, and technically right now I'm working full-time, even though I'm going to be working less during the summer after this, but this week I'm working full-time, which is exhausting, by the way. I have so much more. I really want to go back and study, which is good, because that's what I'm going to do for the autumn. Live the dream, am I right? Never going out to the real world. No, but what I'm trying to say is that it's important to keep up with this change as well, because if I were to say, well, you can do YouTube, you can pick up another project even though you're working full-time, and then when I'm starting working full-time, I drop my projects, that wouldn't look very good now, would it? And especially, it wouldn't encourage me to continue with this if in, like, what should we say, 3 to 4 years, I get a full-time job that I'm very satisfied with, something that I would like to work further with, something that I'm very interested in, and I'm like happy, 2 thumbs fresh. Probably not the UN, but it could be, right? I could be working for the United Nations. A good 9-to-5 job there, it would be amazing, even though they probably don't have normal days there, but it would still be absolutely marvelous, absolutely fabulous to have that. And then if I take breaks now because I think it's too exhausting right now when I'm working full time and doing these things at the same time, yada yada yada, then what kind of message would that, well, first and foremost, forward to you guys who watch or listen to this, and to myself in a couple of years? I mean, that probably, maybe not that I would be doing YouTube videos in 4 years from now, based on how it's going now. But we can be talking about picking up another project, like writing a book, like playing the piano, like making new music. Why talking about writing a book? Why not just reading a book, a couple of books, taking up another project alongside work? I think it's important that you can do that, and that you actually put yourself into the mindset of, well, let's try it. And then you actually try it. It's like a startup. You have the idea, but you also make the effort to realize that idea. And I think that this is a time more crucial than ever that I actually try to make videos that actually work. Why? Well, because I'm in a very tense time when it comes to my time management. And it's so easy, and I probably cannot stress this enough. It's really easy to say that I do not have the time, right? I have the time restrictions on me. I believe myself that I don't have the time, and then you just end up sitting still for 2 to 3 hours at home anyway, not doing anything productive. So that is why I'm thinking that I might as well do this, right? So that is why I'm saying, usually, or rather a couple of months back, I would probably say like, take a break because it's good for you. And it is. I stand for that, surely. It is good to take a break once in a while when you're into your routine, because it's important to step back from your routine and actually try to evaluate, are these routines even good? But right now, when I'm in a transition period, it's more important than ever to actually keep up with the things that I actually want to keep up with. So for instance, making videos, or rather, as I see it, my project on the side or whatever else I'm doing, right? It's very important that I try to keep that up, because if I were to drop it at any time, it would be so convenient to drop it now, and then I imagine that it would be very hard to pick it up during, what you would say, similar circumstances in the potential near future, which isn't good either. So this entire mentality of, you know, I don't have the time, is what I'm trying to combat with doing YouTube videos, with picking this up as a project. Showing to myself that I can actually have enough time management to actually do something daily that takes like, on average, 1 to 3 or 4 hours at the most, right? 1 to 4 hours. Simultaneously as I am having an occupation of some sort at 100% capacity, so to say, which is either studying at 100% capacity or working at 100% capacity, or having another venture at the same time, right? Could be all of these different things, but it's important for me to prove to myself, and for any of you who might be watching, that just because you have a job is not necessarily the same as saying, I don't have any time, right? If you do have a family, on the other hand, at the same time, well, I can imagine that you do not have that much time, excess over that, over those two events, or if you're studying and having a family, because I've been talking to some people who do that, and, well, it seems like they have their plates full, so to say, which I can only imagine to be true. But for all of us, you know, who do not have anything else when you come home, and that sounds truly sad and depressive, I have other things that I can do, that I do, right? These, you know, making videos is not the only sole thing that I do when I come home. I also chill, and you chill out. But it's very important to take this up, to actually show to yourself and to others that, well, you can actually make time for whatever you want to do, and you can pick up another project alongside your main event, or what are we going to say, your main occupation, which I think is really important. And that is also the reason for why I was so angry and embarrassed over myself that I did a video that I, you know, just a couple of weeks earlier done the almost exact same video, or at least talked about the exact same concept and the exact same topic, and I was just like, it's so easy to make the excuse, right, that I'm tired, but should that really be an excuse? I would argue no. If you know that you're going to be in a situation like this, that, for instance, I knew a couple of weeks back, probably 1.5 months ago, I was going to be in this situation where I was going to work like 8 hours a day for, you know, consecutive days, then I could have made videos in preparation for that, or I could have made other preparations so that it would be easier to make videos. Did I do that though? Well, to some degree, yes and no. I have some notes and some spare topics that I do want to talk about, and yesterday was one of those days when I was watching that and I was like, diversity. Observed diversity and real, so to say, quote unquote, real diversity, intellectual diversity. I like that. Let's talk about that. The only problem was that, well, obviously, I'd already talked about it, but I hadn't really removed it from my notes, which was the biggest issue there. Now, any other day, I might have, you know, recorded it, because I probably wouldn't have double-checked with the videos that I've already produced and the notes that should be, you know, new and fresh notes. But when I had produced it, I probably would have been like, oh, I kind of recognize this. You know, search for it to control, because I did that yesterday. Find it and be like, I already done this. Probably redo this video, but yesterday I was just like, do you know what, I actually do not have the time, which was it's probably the worst thing about making this video right now when I'm doing it, but it's probably also why it's so important to do it right now, that yesterday I actually did that. I actually had that excuse to myself. I was like, oh, well, I do not have the time to reshoot it, and I'm like, dude, really? You do not have the time? Well, excuse me, Mr. Prince or Miss Princess, but you do have the time. The only problem is that you're sleeping like 11 hours, and me to myself is like, yeah, but I like sleeping 11 hours. It's But you could do it too, couldn't you? Well, it's physical work at work. Yeah, and there's people starving all over the world. What's the issue, right? You don't have those big issues. Which is also kind of a fun thing that we can end on, I guess. It's not that funny, really. It's really, really horrible. But it's the, putting things into perspective, right? And that is that we are going around at my work right now, and we're doing the, today we did what was the hardest work, so to say, in relation to the other things we've done, and we were complaining about it, which you do because most people do that, right? I mean, I would argue all people do that. You complain about things in relation to other things because that's really the only way that we can complain, because that's the only way we can evaluate if something is good or bad, right? Anyway, and someone took up this example of like, well, there are child laborers in some parts of the world. In some parts of the world, people starve. And, we just shook that off as like, a joke about perspective. But it's actually true when you think about it. You shouldn't have to think about it, really, but it is true. For instance, I'm really lucky being born at the place that I am, having parents that were like they were, really nice to me, having a family that's supportive in the choices that I make. I've gotten into university. I've managed to complete university, or rather my bachelor's, right? And which isn't given at any means, even though I might imply it sometimes, but it's obviously not the case. It's really hard for some people. Some people are just more academically inclined, some people are not. And I would argue that I'm lucky that I am. So there are many things that I should be happy about and lucky about, or that I am lucky about and that I should really appreciate. But when we were talking about it, you still complain. I still complain. The others still complain. It's kind of like a group behavior. But really, we really shouldn't. We should instead make a change and try to fix the world so that we don't have to make those awful comparisons ever again. It's just a thought, which is the problem, that it's often just a thought and not an action. But potentially a future project of mine, if videos doesn't turn out to be my call and my passion here in life, then maybe I should be focusing a bit more on that, helping people around the world. That's obviously a huge statement to just throw out in a video, especially when it's raw material right here. It's not scripted, I just came up with it right here, right now. We'll see, don't hold that against me, but it would be awesome to work with it, obviously, which is one of the reasons why my lifelong dream is working at the United Nations. I'm saying lifelong dream, I came up with it this year, or last year, but it turns out it's an accumulation of all the things I've done in my life and all of my dreams up until this point. So that is why I'm saying lifelong dream, even though many people would say, like, you've never mentioned that. And no, I haven't. But it just turns out to be, in retrospect, it actually has been. So yeah, that's probably it. Don't blame that you don't have time. Try to make a project on the side. If it's a larger or a smaller project, that's up to you. Your ambition level, I would argue, start with a small one just to get going. Do something just to get going, like I did, right? With the videos. I just started at some point and now we're here. Woohoo! Probably a joke or a point that would have been better made if I had 10 million subscribers. But you get the point. You get what I'm trying to say here. Just start with something. Yeah, that's it. I'm kind of disappointed about yesterday's video, but that's just the way it goes. Have a nice one, mates, and I'll see you tomorrow when the stress and pressure should be relieved at least a bit, and we're back to a bit more of a normal schedule for me, which one can argue right now. Is that a good or a bad thing? Let the discussion commence. Have a nice one, mates. See ya.